Hello again, and welcome back to Illegally Cited. This is BGFH, and I am back for another Oculus Rift VR video. And this time I'm doing something a little bit different, actually. This video is actually meant to be a little bit more for the developers and people interested in game and virtual reality accessibility advocates, engine developers, game developers, whatever. I'm going to try to make this kind of concise, but I also kind of want to give you a little bit of a demonstration of what I'm talking about. So here we go. This channel is, of course, focused on technology, gaming, and now virtual reality from a low vision perspective. And since I've gotten my Oculus Rift 2-3 weeks ago now, I've had opportunity to try a lot of different experiences. Some are games, some are like just 360 video, some are kind of a combination, like where you might mainly be watching something, but you may have limited interaction. But I've tried a lot of different things, and I've had a lot of great experiences, and I've found a few frustrations so far. And the frustrations actually are things that, if you watch some of my older content where I talked about VR, having tried the development kit briefly, I think it was the DK2, and then playing around with Google Cardboard a little bit on my iPhone, there were certain problems that I knew were going to be an issue. However, what I'm actually finding is there are ways around that issue with virtual reality systems like the Oculus Rift and the Vive. Those are the main two. The phone ones, I don't really know that we can do stuff with that yet. This particular fix, and here's why. What I found one of the most helpful, I would say actually the most helpful thing that I've found in virtual reality so far, believe it or not, is head tracking. More specifically, head tracking for when I'm in a game interface. Not just looking around the world, like I am here in this little dungeon hallway here, but when I'm actually looking at a pause menu, a character upgrade thing, like like I said, a main menu, a dialog box, a settings screen, a character upgrade tree. In a document, like in Dread Halls, I picked up scrolls and I was able to kind of lean in toward the scrolls. So what head tracking allows you to do, and this is a cool little thing I discovered early on, is that if you sit back a good distance from your Oculus camera, or your Vive camera, I suppose, it would probably work similarly. If you sit back, there are a couple of things that I would really, really request. And I think they're fairly simple. If a game is going to include head tracking at all, I think these are some things that I would please, please, please request developers implement into their game. So, starting with, if you are going to have head tracking in your game at all, for part of it, please have an option. I would even recommend have the option on as default. Allow people to turn it off for menus under options if you want to. But if you're going to have head tracking in your game, one, please have it enabled throughout the entire experience, especially when an interface item like a dialog box, a tutorial, that's another thing. Like, I'll be playing a game and there'll be a thing where there's a tutorial thing up and it's off in the distance somewhere, that's really tough for me and a lot of other low vision users. So one, if you implement head tracking, please implement it all throughout from the time you start the game until you exit. If you want to have an option, if you want to have a checkbox to disable that for some cases on the options, that's fine. But I would recommend including it throughout from start to finish and maybe having it enabled by default. And before I go to item 2, here's what I mean. So now I am sitting back far from my Rift camera. I'm going to hit a button, recenter the camera, or recenter my view in my headset. Now, if I lean forward as a low vision user, the text size is partially the problem, but for a lot of us low vision users, legally blind users, the problem is not always how big the text is. That is very important. So is contrast. But the distance is also a big deal. So because this game enables head tracking from the time I start this game until the time I exit, if I need to get up there and read, like if somebody has really bad vision, they could get up there, okay, resume. Let's go down here. Let's go into options. Everything that I'm going into, I can virtually get close to because of head tracking. It knows that I'm getting closer to it. So item 2 in my kind of wish list, requests for developers, tying into the first item, have a button dedicated on your keyboard or controller. Most of the games will support the Xbox One controller that comes with the Rift. Second one is to have a button that will allow you as a user to recenter the view. It's just one of those inherent things that, accessibility wise or not, you start spinning around in your chair to look around and all of a sudden your view is all weird and you kind of want to get comfortable again, so you need to just, reset your view a little bit and you're good to go. But again, this tying into the first thing, when you add head tracking to that, I back up far enough away from the camera, center the view, and then everything knows that I'm far away from it. Lean in, boom, got it. That helps. That is the number one combination of things that I think has helped me navigate through some of the virtual reality experiences that I've been able to do so far. Item 3, when enabling head tracking, please allow for the user to lean into whatever part of the interface that it is. And by that I mean, like I said, it could be a tutorial in-game. It would be, I actually prefer having like a dialog box pop up for a tutorial, because then it is part of an interface element that one could lean into. Whereas if it's just floating text, that might not be able to happen. I've seen that in a couple of cases too, where it's not really a text box, but you just have floating text. Then what happens is, this is why I'm bringing this point up, is that it may enable head tracking, but what they do is when I move forward, instead of getting closer, it actually pushes the dialog box, the tooltip, the menu, whatever it is, it pushes it away. So basically what they're doing is the developer would be saying, okay, in our experience, we want our menus and character sheets and tutorials and settings and whatever, we want that to look like the user is 5-10 feet away from a TV. Let's just say like 5-6 feet away from their TV. That's great for people with 20/20 vision or very regular vision, normal vision. But for anyone even with lower vision, not just legally blind or severely visually impaired, think about all the people that wear glasses. I've heard many reviews of both the Oculus Rift and the Vive that say, yeah, you can wear glasses if you want to, but it's a little bit tight, it's a little bit uncomfortable. So think about, okay, you may be thinking, there's not that many, legally blind or very low vision users who would be even interested in VR. And I would actually say that is very false. There are, just in the people that I know, there are a lot of us very, very intrigued, not just with the gaming, but overall purposes or overall uses of VR in a lot of cases. But again, think about, there's millions of people who wear glasses. So if they are able to, like I said, use a feature like this, maybe they don't have to wear glasses. Instead of having to squint and try to read it, they can just lean in a little bit to be able to do that. So please, what are we on, tip number 3 or 4? Please, please, please don't push the interface back if you enable head tracking. I'm going to do a little experiment here, if I can figure out where I am in my room here. If I move up, I'm going to move up close to my computer. Now, I'm going to recenter my view, and I am probably a couple feet, not even. I'm pretty close to my camera. Now, I bet if I lean in, see how it's not really getting bigger. It's actually staying still, kind of. And it's sometimes, like, I've also done it this way where, like, if I'm too close, it does kind of flicker and it pushes it back. But if I slide my chair back just a little bit, see, now it's really far away. But I recenter it, boom, back in business. So that is really a demonstration of head tracking and why it is so important for accessibility for people with a vision impairment, be it just somebody needing glasses or someone like myself who is actually legally blind. Just to let you guys know, I am legally blind. That's kind of the whole spin on the channel, illegally sighted, kind of a spin on that. But I can see well enough to play most experiences. I can look around this hallway. If I uh-oh. Yes. Oops. Hold on a minute. Okay, let's just do it again here. Sorry about that. So we're going to go in, and I'm going to reset my view. Whoa, that was fast. Okay, I wasn't expecting that. So when I'm in this environment, I can see, even if it's not like narrow corridors, if it's a vast room or a huge space, I've done quite a few different experiences where it's that. I can navigate through the environment as long as I'm in control of the camera pretty well. Where I and a lot of other low vision gamers are going to have a problem is actually reading text. And again, high contrast, if you're going to have light letters, maybe have a dark background. You can have some transparency like you do here. It's still nice and dark. The text still jumps out at me. Using clear fonts. If you get some of those like old English fonts with all the weird loops and tails and things like that, they're artistic, but they're actually very hard to read. And I think even more so in virtual reality, where text, depending on your distance and whatever, that can also be sort of, just for anybody, a little bit harder to read. I've actually heard fully sighted users say, yeah, text could actually be a bit easier to read in virtual reality. So, clear fonts, high contrast, and large enough fonts as well, because even a lot of, like I said, fully sighted individuals complain for virtual reality or even just games on a TV or computer screen that the text is actually really small. So those are important. But again, I would really, really request, this is for, any kind of game or game developer, virtual reality experience developer. It could be, even if you have, if you're listing a bunch of 360 videos, if you are, just to name drop a few, I've looked at the Discovery one. I've looked at Hulu, and I gotta say, I'm not able to navigate those because they don't enable head tracking for their little environment. And what they do again is it's the whole grid and menu of options is forcibly set back, 5-10 feet virtually from your eye. And that poses a very, very difficult problem for a lot of people being able to read your interface. So, again, just try to summarize again. Have a button in your interface, or have a button for your experience to recenter your view. If you're going to enable head tracking for part of your interface, please, please, please enable it throughout, from the time you start the experience till the time you close it. And don't, please allow somebody to, like I said, lean in toward all kinds of interfaces, menus, settings, dialog boxes, character dialogue, scrolls or papers that you pick up in the environment as, flavor text, character upgrade trees, stat sheets, anything. I'm listing off all the different components, because, even in like an action game, think about how many just little areas that a lot of people spend time in that experience. You got to upgrade your character, you got to look at some background lore, you got to gain new abilities, all these things when you're not actually playing the game. So those are things. Tutorial text is another big one. You got to do a weird button combination. Well, if it's up there kind of in the corner and it's tiny and far away, the only way that I have been able to get around some of those problems so far in some experiences is I literally either have to go online and look it up, or I have to fumble around with the controls until I figure it out. And there could be just complete game mechanics that I don't learn about or that I don't know about just because I'm unable to, I missed that one little tooltip that said, oh, by the way, you can do this. So those are things that can be really frustrating. So like I said, I love VR. That's why I bought into it early. I saw the DK2 unit and went, holy crap, this is amazing. I love being in these virtual worlds, having the sense of space and everything like that. I'm really looking forward to the game's possibilities, but I'm really looking also forward to, live events. Imagine, as a low vision user, being able to have the best seat for a concert, for a sporting event. Like I said, anything like that. I could go on a virtual tour of a famous landmark or building, and I could walk around it and lean right in to look at that cool statue or carving on the wall, or whatever it happens to be. Like all these gaming, all these education and other experiences, especially if they keep in mind these accessibility um, tips slash requests that I've outlined in this video, um, can actually make VR quite accessible for a lot more people. And again, people with glasses, people with more severe impairments, you're only going to be serving a wider audience for including these users. So that is kind of my request. This is kind of my summary video of, I've talked a lot about these things in some of my other videos. I've talked about them in some of the upcoming videos that I've already recorded, and I will probably mention a couple of these odds and ends in most of my future VR content, just as a little reminder, because like I said, I think it's such a little fix. Like again, talking to the VR developer the last day or so was really informative. Because when as I was playing some of these games and doing the videos for these games and experiences, I had an idea that's what was going on, but I wasn't positive. I wasn't sure. So I really didn't want to just definitively say, yes, this is why it works, this is why it doesn't. But explaining it to someone who has developed and worked in a little bit in VR, they kind of confirmed to me that yes, it is actually largely the head tracking, the centering the view and actually the head tracking, being able to lean in like that, that is actually doing it. Because what I found is a lot of experiences, when you're in the game itself, your head tracking is enabled. But in order to start a game, that does not have head tracking, or if it does, again, it pushes the interface back away from you, which is a huge no-no. I wouldn't recommend that. So, sometimes, especially if there's a lot of front-end setup, maybe I got to build a character, maybe I got to choose difficulty, maybe I got to choose a couple other settings that the game wants me to choose. Maybe if I'm choosing multiplayer, I need to look at a server list, or I need to, whatever it is, any kind of front-end configurations, to look at my options before I go into a game. That's why, again, I stress having this head tracking right away when a game is started. If you want to have an option there to disable it later on, go under options, and if somebody doesn't want that, they can turn it off. That's fine, great. But please include it from start to finish and have it on by default, because it'll help, I think, a lot of people. You'll be surprised at what a simple fix, a simple feature like that can do to help a lot of people. So I know I've kind of repeated myself a couple of times, but that is just kind of a summary of a lot of my experience with VR so far, and I hope that this can be useful. I'm going to try to share this, like I said, with a lot of people. As I play more, or as I experience more of these virtual reality games and experiences, I will probably be contacting developers, maybe share with this video with them, because I think that it's a pretty easy fix in some cases, and that way people can see what it can do. So I will stop rambling here. I hope you guys found it helpful. Please, if you have any questions or would like to talk to me about it further, your best bet would probably be to contact me via Twitter at BGFH79. That's at BGFH79. And, follow me or PM me. And if I can give you more contact information that way, email or Skype or whatever you guys want to do. But anyone interested in this, and if they have any more questions, I would be totally willing to help beta test or, work with even an existing product that's already out there if they want to add additional head tracking or just to see how it would work in their menus or their main menu and all this other kind of side interface stuff. Let me know. I will try to help as however I can, because virtual reality is so early right now. It's kind of the Wild West, and everyone is trying to figure everything out, interface and what works, what doesn't. Everyone's trying to figure that out in general right now. So, and as we all know, accessibility is much easier to work with if it is thought of and designed for early on in a project's development. So, yeah, I just want to bring this out there and, like I said, help out however I can. And hopefully, this will just become, within as VR gets matures a little bit. I'm hoping that with these tips and features, that that'll just be as common as a colorblind mode, or as common as, oh, I want to invert my y-axis in a action game, for my right analog stick or my mouse. It'll just be one of these really common things that's just there. So hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you guys found it useful. Again, follow me, contact me on Twitter at BGFH79. And until next time, like I said, check out all my playlists for games and games and tech reviews and VR videos and everything. Hope you guys find something useful there. And until next time, I will talk to everybody again later.